Usually in storytelling, when you have a villain, the writer does one of two things to wrap up their story. Either the hero knocked their top off and saved the day, or that villain gets a redemption arc and changes. Now, I know for a fact we all have watched a show with a villain so diabolical that we just started to feel like he couldn't be redeemed. I remember I was watching Game of Thrones for the first time. Within season 1, I was just like, yeah, Joffrey wildin', they got to kill this nigga, bruh. I was cackling like light at El's grave when he got backdoored. Usually you can tell when a villain finna get redeemed and when a villain finna get knocked off. So it was kind of baffling to me when there was this week of discourse during The Boys season 4 over whether Homelander was gonna get a redemption arc or not. It was on Twitter, of course, because why would it not be? It's always Twitter or TikTok. But somebody made this post about Homelander getting a redemption arc in the last season, and everybody was like, bro, you think that Devil Spawn is getting a redemption? Look at all the people he killed. And they were like, yeah, he's just a guy that wants love, and they'll probably make him realize that and get better. And I'm not gonna lie, Buddy got ripped apart on that app for like 3 days straight. It was on his head. However, I'ma slightly play devil's advocate here, and y'all gotta hear me out. Let me rock for like a few minutes. I fucking despise doing the both sides thing, but I do feel like both sides of that argument were wrong in a way, but also slightly right in a way. I don't know. It's kind of hard to fully explain. Let me fully articulate my thoughts. On one hand, Homelander's obviously not getting a redemption, and they're not setting it up in a way that implies he's getting redeemed in any way. In fact, they're just making him get worse and worse, and obviously he will die by the end of the show. You can tell they're framing it that way. We've gotten to a point where people think sad backstory equals getting redeemed, and that's just not the case. You can sympathize with a character's past while simultaneously acknowledging that they're probably going to be put down like a rabid animal. However, on the other hand, I don't support the idea that Homelander isn't getting a redemption just because he's killed a bunch of people. Because that's the argument that everybody was using, and it's like, well, that's kind of the entire point of a redemption arc. If you think that a character doesn't deserve a redemption arc just because they've done a bunch of villainous shit, then there would be no characters getting redeemed at all. Now, obviously, the response to that would be, well, it depends on how bad the things they did were, but there's two questions I have for that. One, should it really depend on that? And two, what's the line that's drawn to determine when a character is really deserving of redemption? Circling back to the first question, the point of character arcs is to change characters from awful things they did. The character arcs wouldn't mean much if they just did some mild shit like body slamming an old lady that was trying to cross the street or something. It's not really about whether the characters deserve the character arc or not. They have to be redeemed from something for it to mean something. This is where the whole topic of atonement versus redemption comes in, because the two things are slightly different. Atonement is the action you take while trying to make up for things you did. Let's say I robbed a corner store and I feel bad. Me spinning back and offering them $500 is me trying to atone for what I did. However, redemption is more subjective. If the store owner says, fuck you, get the hell out, and doesn't think I've made up for it, then I haven't redeemed myself in his eyes. Atonement is, I guess, more like the actions you take to get to redemption. Most of these redemption arcs we see are characters trying to atone for the things they did. People get caught up in the word redemption, and they get mad at the idea of someone who did extremely awful shit being redeemed. When a redemption arc doesn't have to mean, oh, he's a good guy now and everything is A-okay. A lot of the time, it's a character trying to atone for their sins, and it doesn't always have to mean they get fully redeemed, whether it's right away or ever. Sometimes the point is that they don't deserve redemption at all, but at the very least, they're showing that they're trying, and sometimes it's just enough for them to be forgiven. In my opinion, Zuko is the best redemption arc in TV history, not only because of how well written his character change was, but also because Team Avatar didn't just instantly accept him and brush off all the bad shit he did. They were rightfully distrustful. They hated him for a while, and they were reluctant to accept him, but over time, he atoned for the shit he did, and in the end, redeemed himself in their eyes. We can't go through a redemption video without talking about the most iconic redemption arc of all time, Darth Vader in the original trilogy. It's kind of funny because there's this big uproar at the idea of a character like Homelander getting a redemption arc when arguably the most praised redemption arc ever had a character who was comically worse than him. The guy was murdering kids before he even got put in the suit. After that shit happened, his body count was literally multiplied by thousands, if not tens of thousands. Vader's exact body count in the movies, comics, and shows combined that we saw is somewhere in the low thousands. But if we add the implications from across all media, we're looking at hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And that's not including his compliance and things like the Death Star. All the shit Homelander did is kind of bush league compared to that. Like, objectively. I mean, let's be serious here. I don't see why people act like it's the actions that make a character undeserving of redemption. That argument has never made sense. I feel like it's more of a perception thing. We usually see all the people Homelander kill right in front of us, like we watch it happen. We've watched him let hundreds of innocent people die and intentionally murder plenty of men, women, and children. Back in the original trilogy when the redemption first happened, I mean, how many Vader kills did we actually see? One, I think? Nah, it was definitely a couple. I mean, he yoked up that guy in the beginning of A New Hope and tried to kill Obi-Wan. Whether he actually killed him or Obi-Wan just did the little disappearing thing. If you think that counts as a kill, whatever, bruh. Other than that, there was the TIE fighters he blew up, and that's about it. Homelander, on the other hand, his crimes just feel more personal with him raping the main character's wife, and we actively watch him murder so many people. We didn't know those randoms on Alderaan. Boy, nobody give a fuck about that planet. Vader never actually went on physical killing sprees that we saw on screen in the original trilogy. Combine that with the fact that he had an emotional connection as the father of a main character, and it's easy to see why people's perception of him is skewed enough for them to not mind him getting a redemption arc. At the end of the day, the point is, I don't think just because a character did a bunch of terrible shit, they're automatically undeserving of a redemption arc. Anybody can try to atone for the stuff they did if they go through a character change. The only problem occurs when the author makes certain characters unrealistically forgive them. That nigga done ethered both of your parents and you dapping him up. Nah, let me stop. This is part of the broader theme of Naruto, so even though it's still kind of goofy to me, narratively, I guess it fits. Still though, if I was Minato, I would have been in heaven pissed. My kid over there saying kumbaya to the motherfucker that sent me to the afterlife, you getting disowned, nigga. My favorite example of a realistic reaction to an attempt at redemption was when Leia found out about Vader's sacrifice and she was like, I don't care, fuck him. It made sense for Luke to forgive him and be all lovey-dovey with Papa Bear. I don't really think he experienced like the prime of the Empire when Vader was really wilding. He was off on the corner being a farmer boy. Leia, the girl who got every single one of the 2 billion people on her home planet obliterated by the Empire, then got tortured while being interrogated by Vader, yeah, ain't no way she was going for that shit. Also, one of the main reasons a Homelander redemption wouldn't work is because there's nobody to realistically forgive him. And while you can flip that into a tragic angle if he attempts to atone for the stuff he did, it's nowhere near as satisfying or rewarding to the audience as him dying. That brings me all the way back to the second question I had though. What is the limit before you're really like, okay, this guy's irredeemable? Some of the best redemption stories ever came from people who murdered at least hundreds of innocents. Omni-Man, for example, extremely well written. Luke Castellan and Percy Jackson, one of the best villains ever, and his arc was perfect. So how bad is too bad? Because if I'm being 100% honest, the line for me has always been getting on my fucking nerves. If you annoying, you don't need no redemption. Bitch, die. I don't give a fuck if you kill 10, 20, 30, 40, 500, 1,000 people. Just don't aggravate me. Joffrey pissed me off 30 different ways in the first 3 seasons. I was ready for his ass to go. Seriously though, I do feel like the line for a lot of people is sexual assault, and that's something I can agree with. Rape is just something that's impossible to get behind in like any way. Like, obviously if I pull out a gun and clear out a whole room in real life, I'm literally a terrorist, and that's not very cool. However, somebody like Deathstroke pulling out a gun and clearing out a whole room is pretty fucking awesome because the characters are fake. Whether it's real or fake though, there's no way to make sexual assault cool, and it's always going to be uncomfortable. It doesn't matter if the characters aren't real, especially for people who experienced it in real life. It makes sense why rape is usually irredeemable in stories, while murder is pretty commonly something that plenty of villains get redeemed from all the time. My last points about redemption before I end this shit. They also do this thing where sometimes the shit the villain has done is too horrible, so they actually retcon stuff and change the shit they did or make it so that someone else did it. Bro, I can't think of an example, but I know y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, they have this big twist where it was actually someone else the whole time, and the real villain isn't that bad, and he changes, or they were brainwashed or something. Bruh. I'm trying my hardest to think of an example because I used to see this shit all the time and it literally annoyed me because doesn't that take away from the meaningfulness of the redemption in the first place if they didn't even do shit? I'm not talking about Bucky. I mean an actual villain. Bruh, if I remember an example, I'm gonna pin it in the comments. Another thing, you don't always have to redeem somebody. Zuko caused a chain reaction with copycats wanting to make their own iconic character arc, but that just turned into people slapping a sad backstory on their villain and hoping for the best. Zuko worked because the things he did weren't too outrageous. He was groomed from youth. He already showed signs of being kind and having a naturally good heart at times. And the execution of him being accepted on the good guys team was perfect. Most who tried to copy couldn't execute half of it anywhere near as well. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for sticking through today's entire video. I was chatting for a good minute. I'm not gonna lie, my fault. I got back from work earlier and I turned on My Hero Academia trying to catch up. Nigga, that shit was butt. I got so mad, I said, let me just make a video. I've been on episode 18 for 3 years. Every time I turn this shit on, I'm off it in 3 minutes. Somebody please help. They telling me to get good soon. When is soon? When? Anyways, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Have a great night. I'm about to roll up. Adios, amigos.